Okay, so welcome to the solar eclipse through the houses video. And I really hope that you will find a lot of value in this series. Of course, the idea here is for you to integrate the information relative to where the solar eclipse is landing for you. Okay, so this is meant to support you in understanding the themes that are going to take place for you and how to best navigate this time. All right, so this is the first video. So we're going to look at the solar eclipse in the first house. Okay, so if you have Taurus in your first house and the solar eclipse lands here at 10 degrees. All right, so that's where the first house is, as you can see with the imagery. And the first house reflects both the desire to experience something new and how we self-discover, okay? And this is the point in your evolutionary discovery that will speak to. So if you've got the solar eclipse landing on your first house, you're going to be, there's new themes that will be playing out in your life. Okay, this is absolutely clear. There's new themes that are playing out in your life. There's a new beginning, a new start, and whatever that may be, you will know, because this will be an ongoing kind of theme that has been taking out. So you'll notice that there is a new theme, a new desire, nature, something exciting. You want to do something new, do something different. And this energy wants to pull you into the awareness of yourself. So the key words that I've put across for this energy is courage. Okay, courage. Now, why is courage important? Because this is the part of your journey, part of your experience, where you may need to be making certain decisions in your life where it might feel like you're separating from something new or from the old. And there's this anxiety of separation that comes along with this pattern. So be mindful while with the solar eclipse in Taurus, in your first house, that courage is a keynote that you can implement and apply as you step into new adventures or new experiences or new scenarios and new situations. And this is very much about learning things independently. So I've got the keyword there, independence, right? And this has to do with essentially coming into your experience, the next 6 months, and looking at what could you do in your choice making that signifies or symbolizes an independent action. Okay, so in essence, something new could be potentially bubbling up or arising for you, a desire to experience something new. And when we take courage and we step into that unknown, which can be sometimes scary because it feels like we're going away from something we know, and we find ourselves kind of taking that leap, this is an experience of independence. Like, who am I separate from the choices of other people's expectations and opinions? What am I going to learn about myself in this interaction and this situation and this experience? So taking a leap of faith, having some courage, and realizing that what can you do here independently, right? What action could you take that is maybe not necessarily relying on somebody else, as an example, okay? You might find with this experience that there is a necessary need of initiation, whether you're initiated into the pattern or the initiation is coming from yourself, whatever that may be. Recognize that whatever and however initiation will take place in your life, follow it, do it, okay? Pursue it. Try the new thing, initiate something new, and you may ask yourself, well, okay, so, what's the purpose of it? Well, and I want to invite you to recognize that Aries is not so much about think 300 times and then make a choice. It's, I just need to do this because I don't know why, but I've got a purpose here and I need to action it. So step into the space, into the realm of leading with courage, responding to it being initiated by somebody or a situation or life, or notice that there's an opportunity to initiate something and realize that you're going to learn something about yourself and be fiercely independent in the process. Okay? So some of the kind of keywords that I'm thinking with this transit that I want to just illustrate for us. And I'm just kind of getting a sense of, what could be impactful for you. So this is a transit that I would encourage you to be mindful of potential anger or frustration. Okay. This is where it's important to kind of understand the nature of why the will to do something is important. So you know how I talk about initiation and courage and independence? Well, consider exploring and understanding what's the kind of drive behind this? Like, what's the expression of the will that is emerging? Like, you want to really reflect on that. Okay. And just know that, you're going to be very sensitive to freedom and, again, independence. And again, anger will show up for you because you may find yourself wanting to go in a direction and being blocked or people in your way. So just be mindful to inform is what I'm encouraging you to do with this. Okay. All right. So I really hope that this gives you some value for the first house. So let's go ahead and have a look at the second house. You have the solar eclipse in the second house. Okay. All right. The second house reflects both the instinct to survive and how we connect to our physical senses. All right. So for those of you that have, Taurus in your second house, you've got this solar eclipse land in your second house. These themes are going to be very, very strong for you, right? You're really, really going to find yourself kind of like having amplified Taurian themes come up. So throughout the solar eclipse video, I talked about these themes of inner resources. Okay. So what do I mean by inner resources? Well, the relationship to the skills or talents that you have. Okay. What are the talents and skills that you have? Like if you were part of an environment or an organization and say the question came to you, what could you contribute to the overall welfare of this environment? What are those inner resources that you can tap into, that you inherently know, that you are aware of? And so kind of maximizing that, like really developing that. I'd also say this is a really great opportunity to get connected to what those values or seize those inner resources are and how you can cultivate more of them. You may realize, yeah, I'd really like to develop a stronger sense of connection to these resources, or I'd like to become more competent in this area, or I'd like to learn more about this. And so the question then becomes, how do you then go about making choices that nurtures, facilitates, and grows and expands those inner resources? Okay. Self-sufficiency. So you'll notice through the solar eclipse a necessary realization of how your environment depends a lot on you. And, how in that environment, a lot of people may attach to you because you're the one with the resources that other people are using as a way to kind of, you know, not know what self-sufficiency is, may not know what their inner resources are. So the self-sufficiency component speaks to where you have a capacity to do things yourself, and you're like, oh, I can do this, or I have confidence to do this. I trust myself here. And then how do you then form relations with people who have attachments to you, where those resources and innate skills and talents are then utilized through you, right? That you have people that depend on you because they themselves are not self-sufficient. So you really want to kind of look at the relationship that you have to the people around you, and to kind of get a sense of what those people are attached to you for, in that sense. Okay. The body is a keyword that's associated here because it's very important to kind of remain healthy and fit, and be able to have stamina and endurance. So what are the levels of endurance and stamina and fitness that you have for yourself? So this is a great opportunity to kind of examine, what is your relationship to your body like? Do you find that you want to strengthen your relationship to your body? You want to enhance your relationship to the body? So this is a time where the body becomes a very strong element of importance. And so the question here would be, think about your relationship to your body and how you want to support it and nourish it, right? Maybe you've noticed over the last month that you haven't been tracking the food that you've been eating, and so you're starting to notice you're not feeling really well with that, and maybe this is an opportunity to go into a cleanse, or to do some form of examination of what types of foods you're eating and such. Okay. And then finally, I'd say resources and money are a big topic for you right now. And I would say just kind of check in with not fearing that you don't have enough money, or resources. Like, just understand that you have an innate sense of like what are resources, and just kind of trust that. Okay, cool. So that's Taurus, or the solar eclipse in the second house. Okay. So here we have the solar eclipse in the third house. So if you've got your solar eclipse in your third house, is Taurus. All right. So the third house reflects how we collect information, right? And how we communicate it. So this is the house that speaks to the arena of life, that speaks to, data, and then specifically the way that we actually collect data, right? How do we assimilate data in our reality, in our time? So the question here that you want to be kind of looking at with the solar eclipse in the third house is, am I really saturated with the information that I'm taking in at the moment? Am I saturated? Am I digesting? Am I overwhelmed with so much information that I'm finding myself kind of, in a sense of, processing consistently? And so how can you slow down when it comes to the nature of the information you're processing, and or recognize what information you're able to actually digest with the third house here? Okay, so that's kind of my first sense of the solar eclipse here. There's kind of an overwhelm of information. Now, the keywords I've used here are communication. So of course, depending on what information we take in, we will then process through that information, and then at some point it becomes our ideas, right? It becomes our sense of how we will form our ideas, our worldviews, and then communicate those out to the environment and to the people. So there's a possibility here with this third house solar eclipse of noticing the sensitivity of how information is free flowing within the environment that you're in, and whether or not information is actually landing and connecting. Are you feeling connected with people around how you communicate? So this is an eclipse pattern for the next 6 months that really looks at, in a very sensitive way, how is information fluid in your environment? How are you connecting with people? How you're not connecting with people? How are ideas being understood or not understood? Okay. It's also a good idea with this pattern to go on a short little journey. Like I would say over the next 6 months, maybe plan like 4 short little journeys, because short journeys include experiencing and exploring new information, new experiences, new situations, and you take in new information. You may read a leaflet, you may, learn something new on road signs, whatever that may be. So plan a few short journeys with this transit. It will be beneficial to you, absolutely. The last thing that I want to highlight here, again, this is about information. And again, this has a lot to do with your relationship to the way that you're digesting information. So earlier I said that this is a kind of information saturation energy. So just pause for a second and ask yourself, what is the quality of information that I'm taking in? What's the nature of the information reflecting to me? So let's say you read an article on a certain pattern or a certain information, certain data. As you're processing it, as you're kind of reading it, just take a moment to pause and reflect on, what is this data actually doing? How does it contribute to your overall language structure? Like, how are you forming opinions based on this? How you're learning about what you're learning? And then how does that kind of contribute to the immediate environment around you? Kind of just thinking about these patterns and recognizing the impact that, of course, this has, because that's what's going to give you quite a lot of sense of what I was talking about earlier with, when you're dialoguing with somebody, and in the dialogue, you're kind of noticing how your ideas are being mirrored back to you, and that you get that sense of, we understand each other, or that's not working, and I'm noticing there's a kind of disconnect or a discord in what information I'm actually taking in. So this is an opportunity to kind of get a sense of, using the solar eclipse, what's the language that I'm taking in, how is it being presented, and being able to connect with that. Okay, cool. So we'll start with now the solar eclipse in the 4th house of the astrology chart. So this is if you have the solar eclipse landing in the 4th house. All right, so the 4th house reflects both how we connect with our roots and what we need to nurture in our lives, right? What do we need to nurture in our lives, right? So this imagery of the tree over here is pretty profound, because it illustrates the emotional network that exists in and around a family environment. Okay, so of course, all of us have a family, right? All of us have a family environment that we grow up within, and within the context of the family environment, there's a relationship to your siblings, if you have, there's a relationship to the parents, and you will be very aware of the childhood environment that cultivated the emotional neural network that is your relationship to your childhood, that relationship to your home, your self-image. So these different relationships that played out when you were growing up impacted your worldview, impacted your perceptions of what you consider to be right and wrong, etc. And what I love about that imagery there so far is that the solar eclipse here will, really dig deep into the underlying landscape that is this emotional neural network, right? So you want to contemplate your relationship to the people around you, and how those emotions are, what's the type of emotional relationship that you have to the people around you, and you may notice subtle all different types of emotions. And this is a very emotional placement to have this. So, don't be surprised that during this kind of solar eclipse that there's lots of big feelings that come to the surface. And that's what I meant when I said like how you nurture your own emotional reality. What's the type of way that everybody regulates their feelings in their home? What's your relationship to everybody else in the home as the solar eclipse is taking place? Like you'll notice the emotional balance and ecosystem of the environment of the home. And of course, if you're your mother will come into play, absolutely, yeah. And if she's not alive, or that there's a deep disconnect or a trauma that's related to this, then this will reflect an aspect of that relationship to early childhood feelings, and they'll generally come up as kind of like emotions that are maybe sometimes displaced or not feeling like you can belong somewhere. And so you're going to learn a lot about yourself through this transit, absolutely. Next 6 months. Now, security, I've put here as well, because it's a topic that will be very sensitive and highlighted for you. And, what is the importance of the home for you? Okay, what making choices and decisions based on how you feel internally, like what are your insecurities? This is the type of energy that can bring some of these insecurities to the surface for you to look at and say, am I feeling insecure about the situation and overcompensating? But then let's externalize this and say, well, where do I place my securities? What is it? Where do I feel secure? Where do I not feel secure? Where, and generally kind of that getting that connected to the sense of, what is an insurance? It's a play on our emotional need for security that, says that at some point something could happen and then you would want that safety and security there to look after you. And so we kind of invest in insurances, right? So this is kind of the same thing here in the sense that we'll become very sensitive to, what we want to protect and what we want to secure in our home, in our lives, etc. And of course, a big deal and a part of this has to do with our relationship to what we feel safe with and not. And then the final thing that I'd say here, and this kind of ties in with the early childhood memories and environment and the home, is, what is your home to you? Contemplate that. What does the home represent to you? So for the next 6 months, this is a kind of deep dive into the self-image that you hold and have about yourself, and how does the home reflect that? So where is that emotional discord in relation to your home and how you are in relation to that? So it's like, again, who are you in your home? And what is the role that you play in that space? Who are you? How are you seen? A great invitation could be to speak to the people around your home and say, hey, how do you guys see me in the home? That's a very intense question, but one that can bring you quite a lot of empowerment.